Hello, I am your host, Young Morpheus. This is the Political Matrix. Sorry if I'm a little sweaty, it's a little warm here. So I'll try to bear with it till I get myself a little acclimated to the temperature. While the gentlemen join me, I will, I guess, give you guys some of the news, the update. Christopher Richards, he's no longer with the show anymore. We've decided to just kind of make a separation. I guess some of the topics that we have planned to talk about. There were some disagreements, and I guess just it's just not going to work out. Um, that said, I mean, I'm sad to have him not a part of the team, but you know, the show must go on. I feel that it's most important to talk about all the controversial issues. And the videos which I put out, just like the most recent video I put out, was for us to re-examine our views. I mean, that's the whole point of the Allegory of the Cave video, that a lot of things that we may believe are accurate may not be. And so that there's always different, shades to the truth, if you will. And so my goal is just to get people to think about things in a different way. It's not that you're necessarily going to take on that different mentality. Um, I guess since I have a little time, I'll elaborate a little bit more about what I said in the video. In the video, I said that, like, for instance, Osama bin Laden, uh, he had a lot of issues with the United States being involved um, in what he felt like was the promised land. Hold on a second. Alrighty. Cool. Hey, Emmanuel.
What's up, Marcus? How's it going?
No, it's going all right. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
All right. Yeah, I was kind of starting off the show, going into the news about Chris deciding to leave the show, and I was just kind of
Yeah,
elaborating on.
Chris is. Oh, okay. I mean,
Oh no,
Chris
no,
is
no. Go on
amazing.
ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to say Chris is amazing. I really thought he brought something. I really thought he brought something valuable and substantial to the group, and then especially now with with the DNC convention wrapping up, and like 5 days of that, I'm pretty sure Chris would have had like some valuable commentary um, on that issue. So stuff that you probably would have picked up on, but I probably wouldn't have. So
Yeah, I
he will
mean,
be missed. He was awesome. So
it's kind of like I wish that, and I guess I'm probably maybe divulging more than I should, but I felt that I wish we could have kind of communicated a little bit more before he made the decision
absolutely.
to leave, because I felt that he would have maybe still been able to contribute on other platforms. I know that on this platform, I want to push the limit a little bit, and I want to talk about all kind of different subjects, and even ones which may be a little bit taboo. I want to be able to talk about them. It's not that I want to accept this belief, or I want the audience to be accepted, but I just want us all to be able to start looking at things with more open mind. For instance, um, some of the critiques which I heard from the right wing about Obama, I used to just automatically reject it as outright racism. And when I started to peel back the onion a little bit, I started to see that yes, there was racism. It was coming from a racist lens, but it actually was, something to the critique that they were complaining about.
What critiques specifically were you talking about? Because I've never heard him before.
As far as Obama,
Mm-hmm.
some of the stuff that they would say is that Obama was deporting more people than Bush was. And
Oh, okay.
I was like, man, no, it's not. No, he's not doing that. And then when you start looking at it, you start finding out,
Oh,
oh,
I heard
maybe
about that.
he
Okay.
is. Then they start talking about, you guys think Obama's so great and he's over there droning innocent civilians. And then you find out that, well, yeah, actually he is droning innocent civilians. So it
Oh,
just started becoming thing after thing after thing, which I would notice that I was automatically pushing back against because I was in complete defend Obama, or you get what I'm saying? I feel like sometimes
right.
when
I
we're
mean,
so
when
pigeonholed and defending a certain perspective right off the bat, even when there are true criticisms that come our way, we have a hard time seeing them.
you see him like even right now with what's going on in the convention. It's like we're literally living through that title right. The title of your show right now, where like somebody put up like
Our
Biden's
show,
speech from like our show. I'm sorry, our show from 2008. They took Biden's speech from 2008 and then they compared it to the 2020 speech that he gave, right? It was literally like no difference. There was literally like no difference between the two. I mean, literally the exact same issues were discussed, all of it. I mean, it was literally the exact same thing. And even on the internet, you are starting to notice clear signs of what was happening in 2016. People are saying you have two choices, and that if you don't vote, that any other choice that is not Biden, you are essentially voting for Trump. And I was just like, it's like I'm literally living
all over
2016
again.
all over again. I mean, I could not sit through 5 days of that. I could not sit through 5 days of that convention and realize, oh crap, we're literally living through the exact same thing. And then, you know, it was amazing. And then I think one of Biden's top advisors from that David Sirota quoted was like, "Oh, Biden's going to implement austerity measures if he gets in the office." So I'm like, okay, he's not going to do anything.
I would say,
He
hold on,
barely is doing.
hold that thought. I wanted
Okay.
to read out a couple of chats. We have Kelly. She's in the chat, so she said hello to us. So I always want to say hello to Kelly whenever she's in. And then we're carrying signs now. That's what I'm talking about. He says, "Hey," or she. Sorry, I'm not sure, but they say hey from Oregon, and we say hello back to you. Oh yeah, and then sorry, you can get back to what you were saying.
No, crap. Remind me. I lost my train of thought.
Well, you were talking about
Um,
how David Sirota already broke about about the Biden campaign already looking to perform austerity measures.
right. Okay. Yeah. One of Biden's top transition people is already saying that he's going to implement austerity measures because of what happened. Because he's essentially saying what happened with Trump. There's not going to be enough. Uh, there's not going to be enough money to do any of the implemented policies that Biden was talking about. And I was just he barely wanted to do anything in the first place. In fact, if you look at most of the stuff he was proposing, most of it was stuff from like 2008. So he literally did not change in any real way in like the last 12 years. And I'm just like, you're literally arguing with people on the internet about like, oh, he's offering $15 an hour. And I was like, dude, that doesn't even work in like California, New York, a bunch of different places. And if it matched up what it was supposed to be with productivity, it should be like 2250, and we're not even close to there yet.
But
You
but it
know,
goes. But I, since it's for the show and it's kind of open for us to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, I'm gonna try to expand on that point that you're talking about with you know the that minimum wage not being enough, and even when they are trying to raise it, that it's still not to effective amounts, which are helping, which will sustain most people. What I was noticing is this whole push for more Bitcoin, how Facebook was trying to have their own currency, and you have all of these different companies trying to move to different forms of tech currency. And I would not be surprised if they're kind of hedging. Well, I wouldn't even say hedging their bet. I say that they almost kind of have a wink, wink, nod kind of thing that, hey, we're going to intentionally just let the dollar just because how I see it is like, okay, we know that it's getting too expensive for you guys to be able to handle or pay for this or do whatever. But
Exactly.
what we'll do is we're going to give just enough of some kind of supplement or UBI or UI whenever you guys start getting to that restless point to just kind of tamping the anger back down a little bit.
Right.
And I
Mm-hmm.
look at that's kind of the process. Like they're just trying to measure how high
Means
the anger
testing you're
flow
talking
is.
about.
Means testing, yeah, means testing the anger level in society to
That's
see
right.
how much we can get away with. And with them already wanting to switch over to that Bitcoin, that would switch everybody. Everybody, if they're already into it and they already have all the means to it, it's just going to take their money to a whole nother level. And not only their money, because for some of these people, I don't believe it's about money personally. I believe it's all just about different controls and different ideologies which they have, whether we agree with them or not, whether we know about them or not, whatever they may be, whether it's you know whatever. But I believe that it's about power, influence, control. I don't even think it's about money at this point. I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, you know, I, I agree. I think that the majority, and we've gone over it, and we've gone over the concept of, we've gone over the actual concept of money at this point. I just think it's just a way to, I just think most of the time it's just a way to, to control people. I think they're just a way to keep people in line for like what's impending, what's going to happen. I mean, you see measures being implemented against protesters, you see measures being implemented against money, and I'm just like, it just seems like people know. It seems like the higher ups know something's going to happen, and it's less about whether or not
I'm
somebody's going to get
so
picked.
so glad that it's you. That's you instead of me who brought it up from this point of view. Because this does tell into something that's been floating around in the back of my head for a while. Oh, wait a minute. I'm gonna share these couple of comments real quick before I get into it. But with Karen Signs now says I watched what Tim Black had reviewed. No way I watched that pre-recorded crap, totally edited crap. How many days, weeks do they think took to film it? Yeah, it was just abysmal. And the thing
What
about
is
it
he,
is
what is she talking about?
talking about the convention. That
Right? Yeah. I
it's
okay.
obviously pre-recorded because you
Yeah.
could tell how many. Well, I saw plenty of jump cuts in there, and you know what jump cuts are?
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're editing and it's not a smooth edit, and sometimes you'll go from the person talking in here to boom, they're over there, on the next,
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I saw a lot of that, and it's just like I realized after what went on with Bernie that it's pointless paying attention to anything as far as the convention, Republican or Democratic convention, because here's my thing. Oh, well, a couple more comments I'll share before I get into it because it's been on my
Okay.
mind. So it's something I want to talk about. It says
Okay.
Kelly put not but not austerity for fossil fuel substitutes. Exactly. And
That's
it's
right.
not. And my thing is, it expands deeper than that. That's what I wanted to start getting us into. And I don't want to push too much of the audience away before I send them on the Marcus is a complete crazy cuckoo person train. Um, but we on my other show, the Annihilation Cage, where I was there with my good buddy Niall and Alyssa. We all come from different spiritual beliefs. Um, I come
Okay.
from I come from the belief of believing in a higher power. I won't go into specifics. Sorry, I can't talk right now.
Hmm.
Niall is a atheist,
Okay. And
and
then what is Alyssa?
Alyssa's a pagan. She
Oh,
believes in witchcraft, Wiccan. Sorry, she believes in Wiccan.
okay.
So we have Wiccan, we have a spiritual person believing in God, and then we have atheists. And I was telling them a lot of the research and some of the people who I talk to when I do go back and forth with some of these, because I have debates back and forth with different people, whether it's historians, whether it's archaeologists, whether it's theologians, whoever I'm talking to at the time. And we're always bouncing these ideas back to try to get to a point. And one thing that I notice, we have those three perspectives I've named right there, and then I've talked to some of my friends who are Muslims, and then we've talked to some of my friends who would consider themselves more in the Orthodox Christian faith or Catholicism. And the weird thing, you have all of these different people. You have atheists, you have Muslims, you have Christians, you have Jews, you have Buddhists, you have Taoists, and I'm seeing all of these people, whether they have a doctrine which says something is going to happen or not, everybody feels that something is different about this time around. I mean, this doesn't feel like 2006, 2007 when even though it was all falling apart, it felt like, no, okay, yeah, we're going to get through this. But this right now to me almost feels like something has actually changed, that it's not going to be some snapback to how things were. Like I can see it, whereas we're going through, different checkpoints and stuff with, this whole COVID thing I mean, it could become like the new normal. Whereas you see a lot of these jobs, not jobs, but a lot of these businesses which are going out of business. You see a lot more, and as things continue to run like this, more companies will realize, you know what? I'm saving more money by keeping these people at home. And what I'm saying is, I just think that when you get set in like this kind of partial lockdown mode, it's naturally just going to, as people adjust to the economy, it's going to fundamentally just change things. I mean, what do you think?
Well, it does feel like I'm not I'm like, nah, I'm not a religious person, but for some reason, there is something different about the general energy of like, it just seemed like something's about to like happen in like a big off in like a big way. And I know for like the past couple of weeks, I haven't been sleeping because I've been feeling the energy, and it's been so bad that I can't sleep. And I remember the last time I felt it, and it was like right before the economy fell, and I was just like, I didn't really want to feel it again, but I do start to notice that, you know, you're right, that the new normal could be working from home. Everyone gets computers, you know, uh, real estate changes, stuff gets shut down. That was dependent on like foot traffic and face to face. And then, small businesses, they're not literally getting any of the money that's supposed to save them. Like literally all of that money's gone. And then, they're still fighting in Congress to get relief and help. And then, they're talking about like millions can't figure out how to get food. Millions are about to be evicted. I mean, it does. It
But like
feels
we've
like
already
something.
talked about, that arguing in Congress, you know what that is. That's
Right.
trying to
That's
figure
just
out
performance.
how
Right. It's
to try to
performance.
how to float that buoy of the bare minimum that they can do.
It was
I guess I read
performative.
a couple more comments. Oh, sorry, we're carrying signs now. Is a guy. Thank you for clarifying. And Ziggy784 says, "Lose the fear, step into your power." Well, I'm only fearful for um, negative consequences for others, and for how things could go for people who may not be prepared, whether it's economically, whether they have the type of skill set to be able to move on to a new career, adapting, all those things. If they have, medical issues, that's more where my fear is, fear of people's well-being. Me personally, I kind of believe that things are going to kind of go how they're going to go, and I don't have very much control or power over it. All I can do is try to push for the things I believe in and goals, and hope that I'm able to make some kind of a push. But I'm in no disillusion of believing that I have control over anything. It says, like a big show called Guillotines R Us, where you can buy guillotines. And okay, yeah, I'm with the guillotines. I think that's gonna be happening whether we want it to or not. And Kelly says, all we need now is natural disaster to cap the trifecta. Funny you would mention natural disaster.
Right. What are you doing about the?
Because
Oh well.
that's something that I wanted to talk about, because as you know, like I've grown up I've bounced around a bunch of places, but I call my hometown Kansas City, and right above Kansas City is Iowa, and they just had this crazy storm called a derecho, which I had never heard
What is?
anything about. It's
What is
basically
it?
like it's like a tornado almost that rolls on its side. I mean, so you seem like, yeah, and it was crazy. And I'm like, we're in a time where
Boy.
we're starting to get weather stuff that, like, I've never even heard of before. Like a couple of years ago, I learned about this type of sandstorm called a haboob. A haboob it's like a sandstorm mixed with like multiple sandstorms all at the same time. So I'm like,
Awesome.
something's obviously going a little bit awry. And then you
Wrong.
think about, like, every time you look up, I mean, out here in California where I live, it's wildfires. Like every time you look up, they're having
And
wildfires.
then we're
So,
about to go into hurricane season, and supposedly.
well, and I just look at it like, if you look at, I mean, okay, a lot of people try to look at the fundamentals of the economy by looking at the stock market, and or looking at jobs reports and things like that. And it's just,
And that doesn't work.
it doesn't work, especially when you're already kind of cheating on the numbers, because um, most people, well, I don't know, I wouldn't say most people, I know that a lot of people don't know that they don't factor in people who are not looking for work anymore. So if you have say another 10-15% of people who have given up on looking for work, then that's not included. So your numbers are nonsense, actually. um right now the current figure is something like 90 million people out of eligible people that can work are not working. So
Mm.
it's, I mean, a lot of these numbers are just not accurate. And yes, fire nados are definitely a thing out here in California. Um, see, it
Yeah,
takes
I didn't
time.
know about the fire NATO thing. That's a new thing. I didn't know about the fire NATO
Oh
thing.
no,
That's
no, no, they haven't. Well, part of why they break out here, especially, is when these fires break out up in the hills. It's easy for a lot of that wind coming over some of those different ranges and popping into the valleys to really just build up and do a lot of extra damage. That's the reason why you'll have like that Paradise Fire, how it just kind of the fire was just kind of jumping all over the place, and it was moving too fast for the people to be able to properly evacuate, because it would send a spark a couple of miles over there, and then boom, that whole area is up in smoke. So, I mean, it was just moving too fast to be able to really stick with what was going on.
oh wow. But I'm glad you brought up I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about people being unemployed and not being like 10 to 15% not being factored in, and I was just like, I think Florida's supposedly went up, and then I think Georgia's is like supposedly like evening out, and I'm like, well, most of them well, most of them barely get. Well, most of them barely get anything now. I'm just like, it's not. Ultimately, it's not. Ultimately, it's not worth it. And then, like you're saying, the government. It doesn't matter what the government's saying, but Trump's touting out like $300 a week or something like that, and people in Arizona are like, "Well, we got that now, and that's just not working. That's just not working." So,
Sorry, I got like
it's
the
just.
freezer thing going on. Hold on, let me crack this door, get some air. I am starting to get warm in here. Apologies if I look like I'm glistening to the audience. Um, oh, let's see. We got in the chat, start a home garden, invest in Bitcoin and alternate currencies. Sorry, I skipped the other one. It takes time for the world to realize they're ruled by. Yeah, I'll let anybody following read that chat. I won't finish the rest. I'm not saying that I disagree, but I'm just not going to finish the rest. And we have, I guess, solar scholar weapons in California. Not sure if I'm reading that incorrectly, or I'm not sure what it is, but scholar. I'm guessing maybe you're saying solar weapons. That is something that
What?
which I do worry about. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Ziggy, you
What do
have
you
to
know about solar weapons?
fill me in on the solar weapons part. I do know that uh in the military when I was active duty, we did have weapons which could be powered by solar, which it didn't make the weapons any more special. It's just something that they were trying to move to be able to do a couple of extra different things. Excuse me. Try to use get away from using different fuels, things like that. It also makes them lighter and be able to. So it's be careful. I don't know what I've been out for a while, so who knows what's classified and unclassified to say about military technology. But well, this day and age, they're releasing a lot of information online. So I advise that you just Google what Ziggy's talking about, and I'll make sure to Google it later and try to talk about it at a later time, so the audience can kind of figure out exactly what's going on with that. I imagine that it's probably something important since you brought it up. As far as the gardens, yes, gardens. I definitely advise that for all people. And
Yeah, me too.
whether you expect some impending doom or not, or just that this COVID thing is just going to completely just wreck the economy, and you know you can have food shortages, whichever. Anytime, regardless of how the economy's doing, I definitely advise for anybody to try to grow their own gardens. It's freeing. I feel, for one. I always grew up around my grandparents, trying to grow a lot of their own produce. So I definitely applaud that.
Do you grow
Let's
anything now, Marcus? You don't grow
huh?
anything now, do you? You don't grow anything now, do you?
I actually have tomatoes in the back.
Okay.
But I got tomatoes and I got mint for my mojitos.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
and I'll be working on a couple more. I can get a couple more pots out there. I don't have a lot of space like I've had at some other places, so I can't do a great deal for now. Um, since the other Chris Lawson, our new host, was not able to join us, I am going to talk about something that he reached out to me to talk about. Now, granted, I realize that uh, some of you are still probably holding your ideologies when you come in here, and I really hope that we get to the point where we're looking at this thing from a bigger picture, because as we start going in detail about some of these major power moves that are actually going on, we're going to start looking at it on a higher level than just Democrats and Republicans. I guarantee you. And yes, the mojitos are actually fabulous. Uh, because think about it, we all talk about it all the time. Who do we say that who runs everything? The 1%, right? We say
Mm-hmm.
the CEOs. The only difference is we leave these people in this big vague, you know, window and just say, oh, well, it's just 1%. Well, honestly think that we should be trying to focus on who these 1%, who are pulling which levers. Because if you can understand who's pulling the levers, you can understand who you're fighting against in a better sense. I mean, I think back to, when I was playing sports all the time. We always watch game footage on the other team. You know why you watch game footage? So you can learn about your opponent. And I see it the same way with fighting against the 1%. We need to know who these people are when we're talking about it. Some people say, they like to focus on the Bilderberg, or they just say secret societies as a whole, or they just say Illuminati. I feel like if you're going to say, if you're going to be one of the people who are talking about Bilderbergs, try to find out who are these Bilderbergs. What are the puzzle pieces with that? Illuminati, what are you talking about when you're saying Illuminati? Are you just talking about celebrities flashing symbols? Do you know if that's connected to something? You get what I'm saying? Let's just not do it in a lazy way. If we're going to start really talking about these subjects and topics, we need to not be afraid to just dig all the way deep on all these things. Since we're on the show right now and we're live, I will disclose something which I didn't want to put in a video at the time, but just to show the level of listening to opposite content. I've actually been reading translated. Look, don't eat me up in the comments when I say this, but I've actually been reading excerpts of Mein Kampf, and it's not that I ever respect Hitler or anything that he stood for, but I feel like I'm trying to understand what gets in a man's head to make him think that. I get it. I understand hatred. I understand exterminations and stuff. I've done a lot of studying on history, and there's normally specific reasons that we can look back and say, oh, well, this person hated them because they were Muslims, because Muslims, he had this relationship and this, and there's a tie back. And with all the history I've studied, I was never able to find what was this thing. And it always just felt weird to me. It was like, it's an extreme overreaction. Why does this man feel this way? And just like I said with Osama bin Laden, I tried to figure out what was trying to make this man tick. It's not that I ever agreed with the measures that they took from it, but I'm trying to get to what was that nucleus that started that negative pattern that led to the horrific things which these men led on to. And I feel sometimes we focused on what happened instead of how it happened. What do you think, Manuel?
Right. Well, you probably know more about the history of Mein Kampf than me, because I personally never read it. But Hitler was always well, from what I know of Hitler, Hitler was always completely fascinated by how America handled genocide historically, and copied what we were doing in America to his ideology. He was utterly enamored by what we were doing, and it goes back to the fact that everything is just it's it's basically all connected, and I was just like, it always continued. This is just from a layman's perspective, but it always continuously fascinated me that he picked up their idea. He picked up, he Hitler kind of used America's ideology. America didn't like that, and instead of actually growing and changing from the fact that they defeated Hitler, it still took like another it still took like another 15 or 20 years for them to actually get around to the fact that all to get publicly aware of the fact that all races were created equal, and that we should all be given rights and the civil rights movement and stuff like that. You would almost suspect that after World War II, there would have been a civil rights movement at that point with the Japanese internment, and then numerous other races being enlisted into the military and fighting to prove that they were, prove that they were loyal Americans. But it just didn't happen. So
What if I? Here, I'm not gonna say too much on that. But I'm gonna ask the question. Well, actually, I'm not gonna ask the question. I'm gonna make a declaration. I firmly believe, even if Hitler would not have been the Chancellor of Germany, I still believe the Holocaust would have happened, or some version of it.
no, why do you feel that way?
Well, I realize that where a lot of people are misunderstanding some of the stuff that went on with that is everybody looks at it at Hitler only as if it's a unique thing. And I used to ask myself, well, why would the whole entire country be listening to this guy? I mean, what happened? What's going on with this person? And and just like I said with the Bin Laden thing, I'm not trying to make excuses for any of these people or justify anything. But I do know that before, well, after World War One, if you go into some of the stuff that went on with World War One, and I, I'll just say do deeper research than what you typically hear. Um, that's I'll say do deeper research. One of the things which happened is after World War Two. I mean, not after World War Two. After World War One, the Jewish community, and throughout a lot of their publications, they basically waged a war against, and it was plenty of what is it, newspaper clippings and articles about boycott Germany, don't do any business with Germany, and it was it was fomented, do not do business with Germany, and around the world, even the United States, it affected German business, and it fomented hate. And though it was only a small percentage of people at the top who just coincidentally happened to be of Jewish faith, it got lambasted to the whole entire Jewish population. And that's where it got fomented into this Germans versus Jews kind of a mentality.
Okay.
And it started out for many years kind of being more economic protest. And then it happened where trying to remember, a young Jewish kid shot a high level like German aristocrat, and then that rose up basically the brown shirts, and then they said, "Oh well, you killed one German citizen. Now we're going to go around and basically kill as many Jewish people and tear up your businesses." And so, because of a handful of people at the top, they fomented so much that it turned into a negative power kick. So for a strong man like Hitler, when your economy is already completely torn up, and yes, Prescott Bush did finance Bush, and so did a couple of other people. Um, it gets it gets dicey talking about some of that stuff. So I'm trying to be careful until I've gotten the audience completely with me. You know.
By the way, I meant to ask you, do you, because I didn't, because I heard this theory, I have no proof. I'm not knowledgeable about it anyway, but there was this theory that Hitler was installed by, by rich and that Hitler was basically installed by rich and powerful people. I mean, theoretically installed by rich and powerful people in order to push along the supposed campaign that you're talking about. And I wanted.
Well, yes, he was put in power, and I'm sorry, I got a little echo. You still hear echo?
I don't hear any echo.
Crap. If the
You
echo
hear it
persists, let
though.
me know, Kelly, and then I'll go and grab my headphones. Well,
Yeah.
and that's one thing. Ziggy says here, he was approved by the Vatican, which one thing you'll find out is in order for you to fight wars, which this is something nobody talks about, in order for you to fight these kind of wars, especially a world war, just like on Game of Thrones, you remember how they had the Iron Bank? You have to go get financed by somebody, and somebody is financing you. You get what I'm saying? And so
Mm.
when we have these Federal Reserve banks, that means he's literally going to a Federal Reserve bank and being approved to do this. Now, I yeah, there's the American Federal Reserve Bank. We know exactly at least six of the families who built it and who owned it, basically. And there's other families who I believe who are responsible and powerful for moving a whole lot of things around in the world. Um, I don't know who all of these people are, but I do believe that you don't go from having the type of money to literally prop up a whole country by yourself, and then that money and power just goes away. I mean what I've noticed also studying finances and economics is when you hit a certain level of wealth, just in the way our economy runs, and I'm not even talking about our economy in general. I'm talking about the fiat economy, capitalism, the way it works and the way the interest accrues at certain levels. It's almost impossible to go bankrupt. And if you live, say you're not royal, but you live like a royal family, and your family stays close and they're very tight on who they bring in to marry, and they only marry with other powerful families to kind of keep wealth and power consolidated. That money,
Hmm.
century through century through century, builds, and that's the people who literally sit back. They run they run these banks, and when we're talking about 19 trillion or 20 trillion that you owe to the Federal Reserve, you own this basically to almost like mobsters, to a whole legion of families. Um, now, I I'll just go ahead and say it. I do definitely believe in the Illuminati. And the reason why I call it that, and I know it sounds cheesy, is because that's what they call themselves at the top, literally. I have actually spoken with numerous high level Masons, and I'm talking about guys who were just about to take the step to the 33rd level. Um, they say that when you get to that level, or even you don't even have to necessarily get to that level. If you're the type of person who grew up around the church and you know biblical symbolism, whether you believe that in demons or devils or whatever, you're able to recognize that these are the symbols they're using for it. When once you get into the Masonic temples and when they talk about Bilderbergs and all these things, these are just kind of like the corporate LLC versions of all these secret societies, because it all basically starts with the Masonic Lodge. It all starts with Masons first, and then as you move up that chain, you have a certain level towards the top level, a certain family level, and then you have a chairman who sits above all that. And so when people are talking about, the propaganda that they see through TV, through entertainment and all that, it's all when they talk about, oh, well, Beyonce could be Illuminati. Well, the reason why they say that kind of stuff is if I'm on the level that I can literally do anything with my money, and I tell Beyonce, hey, you know what? I want to sell these new types of necklaces. These are going to be the necklaces that are going to be sold. And Beyonce says, I don't want to sell your necklaces. I say, well, you know what? I'll go call over there to this company and I'll make sure that none of your albums get sold. And I'll make sure I take your masters and I'll do this and I'll do that. When you get to that level, they have that kind of power. Um, I look at it like this: anybody who would believe that people have that kind of power but don't use it, that's almost a scarier thought process to think that these people would just sit back and let everything just kind of go as it will. I don't know. Think about it.
Can I I've always meant to ask you that.
Mhm.
Is there like a specific moment that led you to believe this? Because or like did something personally happen to you with them, with like the Illuminati and various
I,
other individuals?
what I'll say is, I know people that have been involved that have been deeply involved with Masons, um, who have studied most of their life through Wiccan, um, and then personally, like I tell people a lot about my study into politics. But I what I don't tell them is that I did grow up from, a couple of pastors in the family. And what I would do personally is I would study in comparison to multiple religions to try to figure out, okay, is this all just the same story being retold over and over and over? What's the difference? Did Christianity steal this from that? Can you still be, I guess, righteous, not being religious? So I started always going down that path. And so I've studied in that lens. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of studied in the political lens. And then what happened down the road is I had friends who I knew who were Masons, and I would see some of their literature and some of their books, and they said just a couple of key phrases that if you're a person who grew up really around like the church hardcore and you hear some of these things, it's an automatic that even if these people don't necessarily, even if this isn't true, these people believe in this. They're confirming that this is their belief system. Um, a lot of people are not very well versed in symbolism, and when I was in college also, I did a lot of studying on just symbolism in general, not only religious symbolism. And so when I'm looking at things, I'm seeing a lot of different things which people aren't talking about. Here, let me read this comment here real quick. What'd you say there, Ziggy? Huh. Let's see. Let me read that one. Jesuit plan for control of America. Extreme oath of Jesuits. These two documents display the Roman Catholic agenda and intent of usurpation of American government. I wasn't going to go in and say all that necessarily, but what I would say is that um, from friends which I know who are Masons, what they'll tell you is most of the people who are Masons don't know anything because you
Oh,
don't actually, what you're doing in the first part is you're just studying rituals over and over and over. And they kind of ask you if you have some kind of a faith. They don't care what it's in. You can join the Masons as a Buddhist, a Christian, a Muslim, whatever. You just have to believe in some kind of higher power. Um, you can also join actually as Wiccan or as a Satan worshiper. Also, they don't care when you first join.
okay. See, I didn't know that.
It's just about going through these rituals and getting used to these rituals. And if you're not a kid who was like dragged to church all the time and was there literally all the time like me, and this stuff got pounded into your head whether you wanted it to or not, you see certain things and it's like, okay, that's a weird coincidence. That's a weird coincidence. And you just see like way too many weird coincidences, and you start to say, well, I don't know if this is real necessarily, but I know that for them to go to this level of doing some of these things, they obviously either believe this is real or this is what they're worshiping.
Right.
Um,
Okay, because right, because I've always wondered why I've always wondered personally, like I've never asked you personally why you believed in it, even when you first started. I never asked you. I never because you didn't really
well,
seem like the type of person that has like a wall, like a conspiracy wall. You seem like the type of person who like sat in a room, probably poured over like
oh,
bunches of
this
books and
came from years to where I didn't, and part of it is I didn't connect certain people to other people. I've always seen these things kind of separate. So I've seen, okay, the billionaires do this. Okay, I see the politicians are controlled by the billionaires and the CEOs. And I never looked at it as that this is some kind of structural thing that is organized, in a certain way. Until I started looking into the Freemasons. And when I started looking, and some people will tell you this, that they will tell you there's nothing tied to Freemasonry and Catholicism. That's not entirely true. Because if you start getting into Knights Templar and you start getting into Scottish Rite or York Rite, they do have a lot of symbolism which starts to merge and mix with the Catholic Church. Um, and so if you see what they have going on in there, and then speaking with high level Masons, they kind of explain like in order for you to get up to the levels they were, it normally takes many years. But if you have wealth, if you have money, there's what they call a fast track, which you can do. And the fast track, you literally could do it in like a weekend, like if you just do all the
wow.
rituals. And so the person who was talking to me was telling me that most of these people who when they become CEOs of major corporations, if they want to continue to say the corporation does bad and they want to guarantee that they're going to move on to the next corporation and the next corporation, why you always see people who always fail up, and you wonder why how is this person still, because once you get connected, they're just gonna you have another home to always go to,
Right.
and that's what happens with a lot of these people, and when it gets to the top level, these are the only people who really hold all the real secrets. The rest of the people are their knowledge is conditioned and it's compartmentalized. You hear a little bit here, a little bit there, and so each of the people do not even realize what the importance of what they're actually doing. And then I mean, some of the people who I knew, especially back in my rock band days, who were big into Wiccan, they described a lot of the rituals which they do in Freemasonry are exactly the same as indoctrination into Wiccan.
Okay. I guess my next question would be because I guess I just realized I've never really asked you any of this. Are you
Mhm.
driven more by a sense of making sure people know, or more by a sense of justice, or more by a sense of knowledge, like making
I'm
sure everybody
I'm
knows,
driven.
or is it a combination of the three? Or
It's a combination of all of it. As I see more of these things, they actually it scares me. It truly scares me because I know people don't share my faith, and I guess you know what. For the purpose of this show, I will just go ahead and share. I believe in the Hebrew faith, um, and a lot of the things which I believe through that faith um, uh, do shape a lot of the way I view things. And so, though I've studied history, though I've studied economics, though I've studied, archaeology and a bunch of good science and biology and all these different things, I
mm,
always try to take different things which I believe or see and try to see multiple examples to back up what I'm seeing to believe it. So I'm just not like, well, in the Bible it says this, so this means that. It's like, well, it said this in the Bible, but let me try to check to see how this lines up. Like for instance, One thing which I really had a strong time, agreeing with as a kid was Noah's Ark. Like, seriously, you're gonna tell me that they built this big boat to just float around? And then I've done research which it lends credence to the story. I mean, the fact that they did find Noah's Ark, for one, they literally found the Ark sitting up in the top of a mountain. I don't know who else would have built it, and you can tell by the rust and the things when they did the metallurgy how old, the nails and the metal and stuff was on the ship. So you know that it was real. Um, there's also the fact of what is it? All types of sea life, which you literally find in every mountain around the world, showing that either somehow there was seawater on the mountains. I don't. You get what I'm saying? I don't get that part. It gets confusing because some people say, well, that means that because it was flat, and then that's just because it rose from the sea and it still has that. I'm like, why would it still have that at that point, and why is it into the different layers of, like, I don't know if you know how like flooding works, and it floods in all these different minerals and how it'll layer them. The way it shows the different layers layered in as if from flooding, actual pushed. Um, when they talk about different things like bloody water in the Bible, there are parts of what I believe is like the Black Sea, which literally microbes go certain times of the year and turn that whole thing red. It happens like all the time. And so there's certain things which I've been able to see. Archaeologists now are finding more and more statues of literal giants. If you don't believe me, look this up. They're finding giants as large as 22 feet tall. Now, in the Bible, they're called Nephilim, which people who are not, who I don't expect you guys to be with me if you're not a religious person, but if you just curious to hear, um basically the Nephilim were uh they were the son of the angels that were supposed to just watch over Earth, and they decided that they wanted to start getting them some nookie from the human women, and they created giants, and it gets into a whole nother story. So if let's see, what does that say? The mountains have to have been pushed up thousands of feet. That's not enough water over the planets to get that high. Giants, but you say it's not enough, but it is actually literally there. You can find all the same. You literally can find like shark DNA in the mountains, like multiple. I mean, dinosaurs even. They find the dinosaur fossils. Believe it or not, you know where they find a lot of dinosaur fossils? All through North Dakota and South Dakota, where a lot of the oil pipelines and stuff come from.
Yeah, I mean, just as a religious person, you have a I grew up around a lot of religious people. I mean,
I know you're atheist, and I
you have a
appreciate
yeah,
you
you have a
for
strong.
not blasting me on my views
No,
and
I mean,
being open to listen.
I grew up with religious. I grew up with religious people, and you're a hell of a lot more tolerant than a lot of the religious people I grew up with. They don't question barely any. Don't really question barely anything, and
Oh, well, over 200.
just from your work,
I
you question
question.
like
There
everything.
was so much stuff that, and I went for a time period where I was like, I didn't really know what to think, and even up and not that long ago, for a while, I kind of considered myself agnostic. Um,
Right.
and then for a while, then I was Gnostic. You know about Gnostics? Um,
I know.
Gnostic.
Yes, I.
That's yeah, that gets really deep in the woods. Some people don't know. There's agnostic and Gnostic are not the same thing. It's different.
Right. I know that.
A Gnostic believes that there's basically a God who is above the God that we all know about and recognize, and that God is where all your knowledge and everything comes from. And what you should be shooting for is to try to full enlightenment. And when you reach that enlightenment, then you're able to ascend to be with that God. But then, that's
Right.
narcissism. It's going into some, you know, and like what I've learned also, if I would have kept like just like some of the biblical teachings or just the way I even approach religion in general from my family, it wouldn't have put me where I am now. Because it took for me to be around be around Muslims to hear certain things that I would have never ever looked into. And so honestly, the way I look at it is I know what I believe the end story is, but I believe that there are certain books that could tie to explain a whole story. Like
Right.
there's definitely books if you're a person who cares to be that studious into theology, um, then you should be reading the Quran also because it fills in areas that the Bible in the early parts of the Bible. And I'm not saying that it's like it's something that contradicts. It's something that you'll be like, wait, oh, okay, that should fit in there, but it's just not. And I think when it came to the division of religions and people deciding, well, my religion's right and I'm right, and that's when everything got a little mixed around and confused. Um, so like, and like what I try to tell people, what I believe in the Hebrew faith, not Christianity, not what people consider Judaism. Eh, so if they want to ask me more about it, you can get a little deeper into that.
Okay.
But it's not this, like, for instance, I do not buy the whole Christmas. I don't buy Christmas that he's born on the 25th and all that. And I know why they use that is because it lines up with a lot of pagan faiths, and it was easier to push people into Christianity if you already took religions and basic uh, customs and traditions they were already doing. The same thing with Easter is worshiping Ostara and dealing with the line of Nimrod and all that, in which the Masonic temple actually they actually say that they believe. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting that mixed up. No, actually, no, it is right. The Masonic temple, a lot of them feel that they descend from the line of Nimrod, and like their goals are about trying to unlock the knowledge which Solomon was trying to unlock with the 72 demons and stuff. And so that's what I'm saying. You get deep into some stuff. The pineal gland is like third eye. Yeah, I know Ziggy's onto some stuff. Ziggy does some
Right.
good research. I see. Interesting, interesting.
Hey,
Yes.
Marcus, I gotta I hate to tell you this, but I gotta get going.
Yeah, I figure it's been about an hour, and we need to try to keep ourselves to an hour, not get too long winded. But
Okay. Yeah,
anything you got to say before we get out of here? Let me try to read this one last comment from Kelly. Said my dad was a Mason and made it all the way to worshipful master LOL before he died. The Masons in his lodge were all chubby older dudes that talked football and never Nevada and went to in which that's what most of them are. Honestly, most Masons, even up to the 32nd level, they don't even get into all the crazy stuff. It's only those hardcore true believers that
right.
they're like, yeah, I think we could tell him that we really worship the devil. He might be still cool with it. I mean, they know who to not try, and just like well, Ziggy says, outer circle. And exactly, they keep outer circles and they have inner circles. And, I mean, and everything throughout life has always works that way. Just like when you were in school, there were cliques. It's the same thing. Yep, yeah, you have to be invited to the 33. That's what he's talking about. You can't
Yeah.
be. You have to be invited. But it's been fun. Manuel, you got anything to say before we get out of here? I know you got to get
Nah,
going.
man. It's just been just happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I was really the whole thing about Chris kind of came out of right field. I'm really appreciative that that he follows me now, and I get to know him, and I get to speak to
it,
him
it,
now.
it bums me out because I do really like Chris and I really respect Chris and he's a really really smart brilliant guy. Hopefully what I'll do a quick announcement. I am trying to work on a panel that will just be open to, I want the most hardcore badass lefties out there who are not like, should I vote for Joe Biden? No. I'm looking for that panel. So I'm looking for as many diverse, different takes and perspectives, and just hit me in the DM, and then we will figure that out. What time, and we'll film that hourly, just like I do with the panel in the mornings. Our program is going to carry on from this note and dig deeper on some of these issues that we've been talking about and more issues, because there's a lot that I want to talk about with the rest of you guys. I have two interviews coming up for you guys. One coming up tomorrow with anti-fascists. Make sure to catch it. It'll be after my What I've Been Thinking channel's Young Black Forum. And then
Hmm.
I got a special interview, a surprise interview. I will release who it is on maybe Monday, on
Okay.
who I have on my show Tuesday night. So definitely make sure watch my interview tomorrow, and look for my interview coming on Tuesday night.
All right.
Um, anything else, Daniel?
Nah, man, I don't have it. You brought up the forum. Just anybody that wants to follow me can, and I'd be really appreciative of it. And at the Blue Maverick, and anything else, I think it'd probably be easier if I just went over it tomorrow, because
And
of course we're going to see each other in the afternoon, so
And I
we'll
want
just
to
leave it
say
at.
before we get out of here, thank you, Kelly. We're carrying signs now, and Ziggy 784. You guys have been great. In the chat as I get my little setup a little bit better, because you guys saw I had a problem with my laptop last week, and I'll be able to comment back a little bit faster. But I appreciate you guys' comments and always staying in the discussion. This has been the Political Matrix, and I look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Blessings also to you, and never Biden.
Thanks, guys.